Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 16. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me, and we have our buddy Mike Mitchell back again. For you are my hiding place. You protect me from trouble. You surround me with songs of victory. The Lord says, I will guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you and watch over you. Psalms 32, 7 through 8. So last night, Mike and I and our families, our wives and and a lot of our friends from our church, we finished up a 72-hour fast that we did with our church at Milestone for an event called Prepare. It's to kick off the year with this new series. And, you know, Psalms 32:7 was one of the verses that our buddy Pastor Tyron shared. And it really struck with me last night. It really struck me and has stuck with me since last night. When you heard Tyron reading it last night, it was clearly that this verse had a drastic impact over his life, and it really showed how powerful it was of a verse for him when he was reading it. You know, watching him reading it and watching his connection to the verse, you know, it definitely got me emotional. And to be honest, I love the boldness of godly men who are unashamed of their faith. And when they get moved reading something or thinking about something or praying or in the presence of God, they're not ashamed to show it at all. And, so I was reading that verse again last night as I was preparing for this episode that we're going to do with Mike as we close out some of the stories from overseas and talk about his, time out of the military and transitioning and meeting his wife. So I pushed down to verse 8, and that part really stood out to me in regards to, that incredible story that Mike shared last week. I mean, it was undeniable about how God had his hand on that moment and led them across, that safe path and just everything with that mission. And here's the deal. I know that Mike maybe exposed 10% of that mission, and he did that out of respect for his time in the service, what can be shared, what cannot be shared, the men that were there. And, I've gotten to connect with some of those guys on social media since this has came out. And I'll tell you what, if you guys are listening, it would be our honor to have you on this podcast to share your stories and, your points of view from that mission, because I just want your guys' stories to be heard. I want people to be able to learn those lessons that Lucas and I get to learn from our guests and what we've learned from Mike so far. And also to give you guys the honor that you guys deserve for all of your heroic actions and the service that you gave to our nation. And, it's also been undeniable about how God has led Mike down some other incredible paths, after that deployment, his journey out of the military, how he was able to get connected in a Milestone and some of the leaders there and some of, the leaders that are really good at discipleship and that have been helping build Mike up within our church, and, how he met his wife and, starting their family. And I just really looking forward to today's episode. Mike, I appreciate you coming back here again. What's going on, guys?
Howdy. Hey.
Howdy. Hey.
That's for Pastor Josh.
Pastor Josh. Hey. Oh yeah, he told me about that. He's like, it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. He's like, I could be talking to Pastor Jeff Little, who's like the senior, our head pastor, and Pastor Josh, they could be talking together, and Mike will come up and hey, how you doing? Like normal people. Hey, how you doing? Shake hands. And he says Josh will come in to shake his hand and just be like, hey,
the crab.
Just no shake, just be like, hey.
It's more of this.
And it doesn't matter.
It's more of the.
Just more of. So anyway, He was telling me that on Sunday, when I was serving on holding it down on that golf cart shuttle duty, dog.
Watch out,
I run the shuttle at Milestone, making sure people get to their cars.
Yep.
I don't even keep people safe. I just make sure you get to your car. Now, it's a safe ride.
You got to be careful not to run over someone in the golf cart trying to get people safely to the church, because
I've had a few people where I luckily beep beep hit that little horn, got their attention before they ran me over.
I also think that instinctively, if you're in an area, that those people are probably safe. Just from your personality.
Not if he's driving a golf cart.
Okay.
I think the people in the golf cart are probably safe.
If they have seatbelts on.
I see what you're doing, and I know what you're trying to do.
Which is standard in golf carts now. The golf cart seatbelt.
with rims.
Mm-hmm.
We planned
rims.
this. We totally planned this out. Like it's pretty bad because we're starting to speak to each other without speaking to each other. So
I like it.
That's a sign of great leadership from Mike.
actually, I think that's Lucas because I don't.
Silent leader.
See, good leadership from Mike because he's still trying to deter it back down to you.
Yeah,
It's just like
which is not true.
it's like Mr. Chaplin. I'm
So
just
before, I know you got some questions for Mike.
I had so many questions for Mike.
I do. I mean, I think a lot of people do. But in regards to what's acceptable
I
for the
sang
podcast,
this morning.
Yes.
Did you not notice? I sang a little bit this morning.
I did. I tried not
Okay.
to highlight it.
Okay. You're hoping to get worse. So-
Yep.
Well,
I
I
was
gotta-
like, maybe we can entice him.
I got to hear him sing last night, praise and worship at church.
Oh yeah.
I was standing next to him when
It was dumbed down because I knew he was listening. So I was like,
and I knew what you were doing, and it
I was
irritated me.
I was talk singing, whatever, like.
Yeah. So you like stifled your praise to God because you knew JP could hear you.
It's all from the heart, the posture of the heart, right?
Thank you, because I was getting ready to go there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
No.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
The
Denying your
posture-
gift.
The posture
that's
of my
cool.
heart was where it needed to be.
Yeah. The posture
just
of your
didn't-
heart was like, oh, I think JP's listening to me,
No,
Lord.
I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to stymie other people's experience.
Right.
God was manifesting in that room last night. I just
Yeah.
didn't really want to detract from my angelic voice that I have.
My goodness.
I mean, I caught a glimpse of it.
You are doing
This is-
mental gymnastics now with the flexibility of Cody Gandy.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yes.
just not.
It's not going to happen.
Not happening.
Not going to work.
Don't.
This is what we do in
Don't
Cora.
bring up game day candy
Yeah.
too early in the morning
It's
because
too
I don't need.
Hey, let's look at his social media and see how many workouts he's already done.
Freaking.
I've already looked.
unbelievable.
I do a daily scroll to see if he's posted a shirt.
I don't. I follow, like I'm following him on Instagram, but I've muted him because I don't need that kind of
you're so-
negativity in my life.
you're so
Or it could be inspiration,
just-
whichever
No.
way you look
That's
at
not
it.
how I look
Inspiration.
at it.
It makes you disgusted about how you
Oh,
are.
he's
Like,
younger. He's prettier. He's in better shape.
Yeah.
He's off. Like
Smarter.
definitely more virile. He's got
Yeah.
4 kids. Like what am I doing?
We went
Well,
there.
I'm
remember-
muting this story so I don't have to face my insecurities when I open up my social media
remember,
page.
you remember the guidance that your father had given you. It's okay that you're going to be the old guy at kindergarten,
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna have to be.
yeah, what did your dad say? Would you
facial
have
hair.
wanted kids with any of
No,
those?
no, I
See,
would
so
not.
you're
No,
good.
it's
you know,
great advice. Yeah.
And one day, like 17 years down the road, when your wife actually listens to this episode,
Yeah.
she'll be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm very thankful that my husband waited for me to be his bride, and you guys had the perfect family."
That'll be the day. 17 years from now,
She
when
listens.
she listens and thinks we have the perfect family. That'll be it. Maybe around that time I'll be secure enough to unmute Cody. Andy.
Cody.
Yeah.
Mike, real quick before Lucas,
I'm not going to go where my brain is taking me.
Before
so,
Lucas jumps into his questions and we kick this off, and
or jumps off a
what
bridge.
what did you what did you get from prepare? Anything like? I mean, that's kind of like an unfair question for me to ask you because it's not about what you got to share with other people. I know
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you really took from it that you're like, hey, I think our listeners, if they were just to be intentional about this or just to think about this moving forward, that could help them either with their faith or their discipline or something like that.
So I was talking to a friend of mine about that this morning. He's like, I could never fast. I could be like, yeah, you could, because you would get your answer in 7 minutes, because he's like, I got to eat, he's very
Does that bother you?
regimen.
Not that he's regiment. Does it bother you when people are like, oh, I fast, I couldn't do a fast? Or like when people are getting at the end of the 72-hour fast, they're making this huge deal about it.
Yeah.
It made me want to go, oh, really? I'm going to Friday now.
Right. Yeah, when you brought that up, I was like, no, I'm not going to Friday. I'm eating at night. But no, so it doesn't bother me because, I can't, when I hear that, especially with this guy, he's going to know who he is.
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So, but, I just can't, for me, I can't sit in a position and look and be and have, I don't want to say judgment, but judgment, just be like,
Yeah.
you do you. I'm just going to continue to, and it's really not that, a long conversation with him all the time, but we were more joking about it. And I just, for me, when it comes to fasting and when it comes to prepare, or whenever I fast throughout the year, because whenever I do need something, that's what I was taught.
Yeah.
Whenever you need something, whenever you're praying for something, if it's really important to you, you will fast.
Yeah.
And so, what I like what I like to say, or what I get out of this prepare that we do, the 72-hour fast, or whenever it is that I fast, it's a reminder to me that I am so close to God's presence. Like I whenever I want it, I can have it. And I forget that, or life waters things down, and I can do my devotion, I can read, I can do all the steps that God asked me to do, but then there's times through our seasons, especially with seasons that like my wife and I are in now. It's been a long season, so I'm weary. I'm tired.
That season is coming to an end.
Yeah, it's coming.
I know you know that, but I've also felt that as Amanda and I have been talking and praying for you guys. I'm telling you, that season, bro, is coming to an end.
In the name of Jesus, I'm ready. I love it.
Yes.
We are ready. We're weary. We're tired, and that's okay. But in my weariness, in my tiredness, in my weakness, in my vulnerability that I'm in right now, physically, mentally, and maybe not to a point spiritually as well. What this fast does for me is it reconnects me to my source, or it reminds me of my connection to my source. And so, any word that I have for somebody that's fasting, or that's not sure or understands, or like, why do you do this? When you're hungry, you're hungry. Yeah. And when you're fasting, and you're fasting when your heart's in the right spot, and when we're fasting for the right, I don't want to say the right reasons, but when we're fasting to connect with God, He's going to connect with us.
Yeah.
And I believe that every time.
So I'm so glad that you shared that with our listeners, because there might be one, I know there's at least one, if not a handful, that didn't even know that. So I was talking with my Jiu-Jitsu professor this morning, Formiga, him and his wife Elisa. They own Double Five Jiu-Jitsu in Highlands Village, where I train at, and they also go to Milestone. And I was talking to him this morning about fasting, how we just came off the fast. They just came back into town, and we're just catching up this morning. And I was explaining to him the fast, and very similar to what you said. That is what I said this morning. I was like, man, it just allows me to just be a little more present and hear and be close to God's presence, and hear the promptings that He has for me. And and so the timing behind that conversation was very unique, and I'm very thankful, that I was in a position to be able to listen to God's promptings, because of coming off that fast and just listening to praise and worship this morning on the way in here.
Yeah.
And, being able to like shoot a text message and pick up the phone and just talk through some stuff. And it's cool because I was talking about the fast, and for me, he goes, I didn't know there was a spiritual aspect to fasting. He thought it was just for health and fitness. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Like, and so somebody listens might be going, dude, that's crazy. How could you not know that? Well, if nobody's ever told you that, how are you supposed to know these things?
You can read it.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, Jesus does it, right?
Yes.
We've been God's people have been doing it. You can read about it and not make the connection, right?
And especially like for Megan and Elisa, I mean, they grew up in Brazil, and traditional Catholic background, which was fine. I'm not saying anything bad about that, obviously, but they didn't have like a heavy education on, obviously, fasting. Zero, none, right? And then as they've been here in the United States, and then they started coming to church with us at Milestone, and Formiga gave his life to Christ as a Christian, right? And he's just been seeking it out, and his wife as well has been like seeking the Lord more, and they come to all the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsus, and Elisa one time was like, hey, can I have one of those Bibles that you guys give out? We're like, yes, of course.
Please,
it was just
please.
awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you didn't know that there's a spiritual aspect of fasting, how could you ever do it? And so it was really cool. He's like, okay, I need to do that. And I was like, I will do it with you.
Yeah.
I was like, I will do this with your family. Like, let's talk later today. Let's go.
Yeah.
And, but it was cool because it was an opportunity to just open that door.
Right.
And it's awesome how God just used you to do that for all of our listeners as well, which is great.
And at the end of the day, we are led, right? We have the best leader of all time. He gave us the exact example of what we needed, and he did it. Yeah. Jesus did it right after he was baptized.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just following the lead.
Yeah.
I'm following my leader.
Follow the leader.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at doing that. Like I'm
pretty good at following.
I'm pretty good at being a sheep.
Yeah.
And nowadays, nowadays it's a negative thing to be called a sheep. Like, oh, you're a sheeple, you're a sheep. But I rest in the fact that I'm a sheep.
Yeah. Because you know the true definition.
Yes.
And here's the thing.
I know what submission looks like.
Yeah. The enemy perverses all things that are pure and good.
Right.
And we were called his flock, his sheep. Mm-hmm. And that was out of love and passion, compassion and kindness from Jesus. And yet society wants to perverse that.
Yeah.
And switch around like the made up word coincidence. It's instead, what do a lot of people used to say all the time? Divine intervention. Mm-hmm. That's divine intervention. And then now it's a coincidence? No, that's divine intervention.
Yeah.
Because there actually is no Hebrew word for coincidence. You can't
know that.
Yeah. And so coincidence is a made up word. And there's a lot of things out there that society has twisted and perverse to take away from the purity of the Bible. Yeah. And one of the things I loved, everything's been a blend, whether it was last night or Sunday, but recently hearing was, the Bible is the word of God. So if you're praying and struggling, or maybe Tyron said this, I don't remember who it was recently, but if you're praying and struggling to hear God, read the Bible, because the Bible is his word, and that will open up some understandings and thoughts and things to you. So
it sounds like one of the things we said on the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Like, if you want to hear God, then read the Bible. Yeah. If you want to hear God audibly, read the Bible out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys had talked about that a few weeks ago as well also. But I know it was cool because I had heard that on the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu episode when I wasn't a part of one of those. And then also hearing it again recently, it was just a good reminder to me, like, hey, dummy. You need to be getting those pages open and flipping more. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Thoughts from Prepare? Just how you're kicking off the year before Lucas has some questions. Mm-mm. Okay.
You're out of thoughts?
No, I have a lot of thoughts, but
mark this. This needs to be time-stamped. This was the time Mike Mitchell was out of thoughts.
I wasn't out of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of things. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 pages of thoughts.
Some of those are half pages.
Okay. 6. 6.
I'm just saying.
But then I also
6 3/4.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know why you're reading my notes.
That feels better.
Yeah, that's not even that full. Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts, but do you really want to get into them?
Yeah, actually, I do.
According to our listeners,
yes. There's a lot of people that want you to put your thoughts into them.
Maybe you should put your thoughts into a book. Ooh.
But only if that's what God's calling you to do in obedience, especially if the Holy Spirit is speaking through other people.
Exactly. My thoughts exactly.
Namely your producers and boss, but that's fine.
Bro. Shots fired.
So I had a question. I didn't get to ask questions at the end of the last episode.
I don't know. I feel
you know what? Hey, you know what? I'm going to shift this.
I think I just
off me back over to Mike.
Yeah, I think I just got I got sweaty. I don't know what just happened.
Got really nervous. JP's
I'm going to have to go back and listen to what he said because I didn't quite hear everything he said because he talked so fast.
I'm about to be threatened
with
my life.
Exactly what he heard. No,
I heard that. What did I hear? What
so
did you just say?
I do have a question for you because the last episode, maybe we went over so many things about what I have come to find out was Operation Steel Dawn 2, right?
This is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That was told to me.
Yep. Yeah.
I know you know.
Yeah. I know about that.
If I got that text from that person, then maybe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would at least consider it.
JP's the seed planter for me. So,
So after our episord, I went back and I've done some research on Operation Steel Dawn 2.
Okay.
And there is...
What did you find?
We don't have to talk about all of it, but there's a lot of stuff about y'all's operation that talks about the heroic efforts of the guys, of just the way that the odds were stacked against you, and how much some of the people that you mentioned in the podcast, like Sonny Abrams and those guys. I don't remember Sonny's rank because I'm terrible with it. I'm a total civvy.
Gunnery sergeant. At the time, he was gunnery sergeant.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know Major Dick Winters only because I'm episode 9 into Band of Brothers right now, and he just got promoted. He got his oak leaves, and I was like, I don't know what that means, so I got to check that out, right? So, having been around JP for a period of time, looking at the stuff that I've seen from the stories about Mikey Mansour and about Mark Lee and all these like incredible guys. Those who have given their life in service and those who have done like heroic things in service. I'm not seeing like anything that talked about what, and again, like total civilian side, right?
Yeah.
Like, do they not mention accolades that were given to soldiers in like articles about, the stuff that happens in these operations, or because you see some stuff from the top brass, but it really doesn't talk about like the commendations that they got. Like, it seems like what you guys went through, that there should have been commendations for it, and I'm not seeing that at any of this stuff. So I didn't know if that was like a thing, or like that they're just not mentioned in those articles, because it seems like that should be something that was mentioned.
He's just choosing violence and anger. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out how to word it and how to like sort all of this out, right? Because I don't know.
I know what I feel right now.
Fantastic.
And I could only. Thanks a lot, Lucas.
Okay, cool. So I just stoked a fire that I didn't realize was maybe as ready to go as it was.
I know this feeling, but I know this feeling like that.
Yeah.
The tickling feeling right here.
All right, so I found a button.
You found it.
Fantastic.
To answer your question, yes, there were awards given.
Okay.
To the wrong people.
Yep. That's a very, very common thing.
Yep. Now, were the awards given? Do the people that get awards? So the Marine Corps is, I'm going to say it, the Marine Corps is awful at this.
Yeah,
the Marine Corps is
factual statement.
Yes, and I don't know how far back this goes. I don't know if this leapfrogs back to, the original Iraq push, Vietnam, whatever you want to talk about, but probably.
Yeah.
But the mindset of the Marine Corps is, you just did your job. And so why should we do that? So do guys get recognized for things that they do? Yes. Is the Marine Corps good at doing that all the time? Or is the Marine Corps good? Are they efficient at doing this? No. In my opinion, is the Bronze Star, does that carry the weight that it used to carry? In my opinion, no. Because now, if you look at the statistics, there were 100,000. I believe there's 100,000 Bronze Stars given out in the Iraqi. I think in the OIF.
Are those with Valor?
No.
Okay.
So 98,000 were non-Valor,
yeah,
right?
Okay.
And then
what is? Can I ask a dumb question here? What does that mean with Valor?
Go ahead.
No, you do it.
Well, I'm going to definitely screw this up, but I'll give you Cliff Notes version of what I've always been kind of told, understood. It's you're doing a heroic action. A heroic action is associated with that write-up. Like, so the Bronze Stars that I have with V, that means that it has with Valor. What he's talking about, I just want to, like, there are guys, there are officers in the regular fleet Navy that have been awarded Bronze Stars for making sure that the snacks and sodas on the ship stayed fully stocked on their whole deployment. Because somebody wrote them up for that award, and the higher ups pushed that up. And so this is what he's talking about, is the perversion of the Bronze Star and medals that were deemed for heroic actions. That's why they had to, I think the V is a very distinguishing thing. It's like,
It is.
and so
It means something to me still. The V means something to me.
Yeah, for sure. Same here.
100%.
I have
Regardless of the award, if there's a V on it, that means something to me until I hear your story. I want to, I want to make
and I'm always like, I want to hear the story.
I want to hear
too.
the story,
Yeah.
right? Like but my immediate reaction when I see awards or when I see people that have things is, if I don't know you, is like, well, and it's not, is it right? I don't think this is right. But for me, when I see things, it's just like, did you deserve it? Because there's some things that, and you get above Bronze Star, you have to do something good, right, to get these things. But
like
the guys that I know with Bronze Star Vs, like my colonel, Bronze Star V for his actions at Operation Steel Dawn 2, and I believe my Sergeant Major, Bronze Star V, for his actions at Operation Steel Dawn 2. Don't quote me on that stuff, but I'm fairly certain.
That's crazy.
The artillery officer, Operation Steel Dawn 2, either Bronze V or Navy Accommodation V.
Navy Marine Corps Accommodation Medal with Valor.
With V. He was on the north side of the mountains. So I'm setting this state. I'm not saying these things to call these guys out, but I am calling this the act of this, in my opinion, in my battalion. This doesn't reflect John Battani.
Yeah.
This doesn't reflect Johnny Hughes, my leadership, my direct leadership. I don't believe this is how they felt.
Yeah.
Do not hear what I'm not saying.
Yep.
Okay. But what I'm saying is my command above that really had control a lot of this stuff. And I believe it's a Marine Corps wide issue. You are given awards based off of your rank.
Oh yeah.
So I walked out.
That's a military thing though.
Yeah.
Not just Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Like Navy does that.
I walked out of the award ceremony for our battalion when they started doing, like the colonel and I think the sergeant major. I don't think we saw them get their awards, but the other guys that were getting their stuff, I know what they did, and I see them getting, and then I'm having to watch my Marines stand there in formation and look at this crap, because at that point, you want to know what they got for their award, for their heroism? Nothing.
They didn't get anything.
They got a deployment NAM. So Sergeant Bridges, deployment NAM. Sergeant Platt's, deployment NAM. Sergeant Flores Martinez, deployment NAM. Gunnery Sergeant Sonny Abrams, developer of the route.
Dude.
NAM V.
What's a NAM?
It's the lowest.
Yeah, it's the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal. Literally, people get that just for going on a deployment. Because hey, you're going on deployment.
Show up.
You show up on deployment, you should get a NAM.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're on deployment. Deployments are hard, they're rough, you're going through a lot of stuff. That's like literally people get NAMs literally just for being on deployment. And there are people in the regular fleet Navy that are getting NAMs for going on deployment, not taking it away from them at all, as they should. They're underway. They're serving our country. They're doing a horrific, they're doing a
hard job.
They're doing a hard job that nobody wants to do to protect our nation away from their family. So every sailor that you're listening to, I think you should get that NAM 100%. The problem is that I have is that literally is the same as Mike's Marines. That these stories that we heard 10% of, like Sonny, Navy Cross. That guy deserves a Navy Cross, no doubt, which is just under the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And
that's like above a Silver Star, right?
Yes, yeah.
So it's like Navy Cross, Silver Star, or so Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, Silver Star.
If you think about
Yeah.
the level of influence that Sonny had on this operation, like you see the operation, you read the operation. This operation was worthy of historians, colonels putting that stuff together. And there's been multiple articles written. So this operation,
the one in particular that I read was written by a colonel.
Okay, right. So
that's a big deal.
And he was asked so it's big deal, influential. Sonny, you're talking 500 dudes, when the general came to the base I believe it was General Mills. When the general came after the op, he pulls up, the head shed standing there, obviously, and he asked Sonny and Derek Platts to come up because Sonny developed the route. Derek was the point man, and he wanted to honor them for what they did. And he said, for you, and he's talking to them, right? Like they're standing there in front of him. I remember this plain as day. I think there's a picture. It doesn't matter. He said, I want to name this route after you guys. Like this new route is going to be called the Platts Abrams or the Abrams Platts route, whatever, like. And Sonny,
Wow.
Sonny said, in pure Sonny fashion, I'll show you a picture of him later, but Lucas, you saw a picture of him. Like everything you know about Sonny, you probably understand what you probably get what he's about to say. And you probably know guys like this. He looked right at that general, and Sonny is the stoic, calm, gelling guy, not the fire breathing Lance Garcia. This is Sonny Abrams, right? Like he said, "Sir, no, you're gonna name that route White." Like, which was our platoon. He's like, it was not me. It wasn't Platts. This was us. Like, I am who, and Sonny, like, and I talked to Sonny after the last episode and before it because I really wanted to make sure that I didn't make him feel uncomfortable. And when you meet him, you'll understand what I'm talking about because he's
So humble.
to a fault,
Yeah.
right? Like, to a fault.
Yeah, I have a few of those buddies
so
as well.
and I'm not dissing on Sonny.
No.
But his he said, I don't want the recognition because without you guys, I'm not who I am. Like without you guys, I'm not platoon sergeant. So he's that's the level of heroism that involves. So when you say things like that, like Navy Cross, I'm not as exposed to that realm as you are when it comes to awards, right? So I don't know, like I know the standard or the requirement for Bronze Star is almost the same as Navy Cross. Like it's combat action or doing something above and beyond in a wartime environment when you have joint forces with you. That's basically the requirements, right?
I mean, so when you get up to the higher, like, so Bronze Star, then Silver Star. I mean, obviously there's some in between, but I mean, when you're talking like combat, I'm pretty sure the ranking is, like Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal, like Army Accommodation Medal, right, with Valor. And then you bump up to Bronze Star with Valor, Silver Star. There's no V for Valor for Silver Star because if you're getting a Silver Star, it was
implied.
Well, what you did was implied, and then Navy Cross is like you're a legitimate heroic action where your life was in imminent danger, and it was you executed anyways, which is what he did. Or and in a combo of which. Again, don't quote me officially for like how you're going to be writing awards in the military, but also for the Navy Cross, from what I've learned and heard. Like I have buddies that have Navy Crosses, and I've been at ceremonies where guys receive Navy Crosses, and you're like, and it's a fine line between Silver Star and Navy Cross on some of those guys' readings, but they look at like the overall impact. And so someone like Sonny, who in no regard for his safety, right, put himself out there to provide intel and information and routes and guidance, and was in combat and engaged the enemy fighters and hunted them down, and did all these things that people make movies about, literally movies about. That's okay. Now we're at that Navy Cross thing, right? And the next one up is Medal of Honor, and the Medal of Honor, it's for a living Medal of Honor recipient, I mean, like Dakota Meyer's story is just it's unreal.
Amazing.
I've heard it so many times. I've read it. I know Dakota. I could text him. He'll text me within a day or two back, right? Yeah. And we communicate regularly. And I still get emotional when I hear that story.
Yep.
Because guys that get medals of honor had complete disregard for their livelihood, and they defied the odds. Like the odds were for them to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
That's why living Medal of Honor recipients, like people are just like, and then they hear the story. It's like, how? Because any other human, they're going to go see their maker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're going to see their maker.
Kyle Carpenter,
Dude, Kyle Carpenter's story. I mean, yes.
I have a man crush on that guy.
I think, every man, every alpha male
I
does.
think one of my buddies, he's about to take command of a straight leg unit, but he sent me a picture of in the airport with him and Kyle, and I like.
So I reacted however you
mad.
reacted.
Yeah.
I reacted the same way recently because Dave Burke sent a text message to in our ELT group message to him, Jamie, Leif, Jocko, and I, and it was him and Cordell, which is another instructor we have at Echelon Front that flew with Dave. This guy's super brilliant, like Dave, a fighter pilot, did a bunch of different commands, and then got out and basically has helped run a bunch of companies. Flip them, sell them, get them up and out. He's incredible what Cordell does. And so he works with us now. Well, Cordell and Dave were working with one of our clients. I can't say who they are. Pretty cool, important company for what they do for our nation.
Right.
And Kyle Carpenter was there at that event because they were dedicating something that this company does and now called it the Kyle Carpenter blah, 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 like system. We'll just say system, whatever.
I think he's getting a ship named after him.
He probably will as well, but but that's just like incredible. Like Mikey Mansour had a ship named after him, and being at that ceremony was incredible. And so, it's frustrating to hear that, Mike, man. Like, because I know that you and your leaders at your level did what you could, and I also know from our conversations is you also feel like you didn't do enough.
Right. I was about to. That's why I was cutting you off because I didn't. I didn't do enough, and you can push back on that, whatever. And I know Sonny's going to push. He already pushed back. Like he already slapped my hand. He's like, "Don't you dare!"
But I understand what you're
like
saying, and from me detaching from our friendship, from a leadership standpoint, I can agree with you on that. And that's what every good leader should be thinking.
100%.
Jocko did incredible things for our task unit.
Yeah.
Incredible things. And he still has those same thoughts of.
And how did he learn how to do those things, though, is like you screw it up first, right? So I severely screwed this up. And it was not because I was afraid, not because I just didn't really know any better. And I fell into the mindset that I was taught to have, which was, well, we were just doing our job. We did, okay, cool. And that was what Sonny said, right? So I'm looking at Sonny. He's the man, right? Like I'm looking at Sonny. I'm looking at Gunner or Master Guns Reed. I'm looking at these guys that are just saying like, hey, we're just doing our job. We're just doing our job. And so when it came to, I have to write awards, right? Like I write them out, and then I'm like, well, what do I do? How do I? Which one's this? Which one's that? And so I'm just like kind of figuring this out on the cuff while we're still operating in Afghanistan because it has to be done before we get back, which is funny. But
what?
Well, it was just all that. It's just weird. We had to submit a whole bunch of stuff beforehand, and so.
Did you have any officers above you help you with writing awards or explain to you?
So John, yes.
Okay, cool.
Now, when I'd set something up, he'd send it right back. Okay. He'd be like, nope, this is wrong. Retype this. This isn't going to work. They're not going to. So John developed me in that way. And where I screwed up was I just did not push the story. I did not push the actions of my guys. And I don't know. I still try to find ways to correct that. Yeah. So I went on an apology tour, when I got out, like I was, I'm looking back and I'm starting to think about all this stuff, and I'm hearing stories from other dudes and what they did. And I don't like to, it's not taking away from what people do, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, my Marines did stuff like that. Yeah. You can't, with full context, you can't fully compare situations. Yeah, that's fair. But you can compare the amount of influence that an action has, right? and you can also compare the level of danger, or the stepping out, what you're really risking, the level of risk, I guess, is risk assessment of it. And I've called Sonny, I've called Derek, I've called Flo, I've called Ben, and I've said things like, I'm sorry, I don't know, I screwed this up. You guys are like, I would sit there and cry, I'd just be like, I don't know how to make this right. And they're like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, they're like, shut up.
Shut up, nerd.
Yeah, like they're like, shut up. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, this is important. And, the Chad Apshers, the Fred Ginthers, the Sean Keeners, these are all gunners and drivers. Matt Bales, Flo's driver. Matt Bales and Sean Keener, the guys that drove their vehicles blind for 30 hours.
Like, that's...
Like, and they didn't say, I don't think so. They didn't say, I can't do it. They just did it, and they just figured it out. Like Bales, he put his Kevlar on in the dark and put his nods on, and he's driving in a hole, looking through his periscope thing with his MVGs, trying to figure out how to drive. Like, that's Matt Bales. That's Sean Keener. Like, Matt Ginther saving, doing the things he did. The gunners that Derek Platts ran over, and his driver and Sean Riggs, they ran over IEDs, and they just, Derek Platts doesn't even have a Purple Heart, and he ran over 2 bombs and got hurt, and he was bit by a snake. Like, this dude, like, these guys.
He was blown up twice and doesn't have a Purple Heart?
Right, because we were in MRAPs. And, like, at the time, we're thinking 2010, right? This is pre-concussive issues, so. But Derek gets hurt. His driver, Dorsey, doesn't even, he's like, okay, give me another vehicle. Let's just keep going, And Sean Riggs, he gets blown up the first time, and he gets out, and he's sweeping. He's concussed. He can't think straight, but he gets out, and he's sweeping for IEDs so we don't blow up. Walking up to give him a hand. So, like, I screwed up big time because these stories are just now being told.
Okay.
Right? And they should have been told by me as a lieutenant. That was my job, was to do that. My job is to not only prepare and equip and take these guys and lead them through combat, but it's also to ensure that they're recognized for what they do.
Okay.
And as a leader, that is your job.
Yeah. No, I
and
agree.
So, I'm violent whenever I start thinking about it. Like, I'm just upset at myself because I know you're about to.
No, I'm not gonna.
You're doing the okay. Like, because
I
you're
agree
agreeing,
with
but
you.
you're about to, like.
I didn't realize what a hornet's nest I was kicking when I asked what I thought was a simple question.
Do you want to ask another one? Like,
I think I'm good.
Hey,
we should probably not
need-
let me ask questions
that
for a
is-
few episodes if this is the response that I'm going to get.
No, this is good
no,
because
this needs to be said. This 100% needs to be brought up because you know what? If I don't know if it can happen, but I'm on board for my guys being recognized any way they can be.
Hey, if there's any listeners that think you can help facilitate and just guide Mike and I of the proper steps that need to be taken, we're all about it for sure. And there might be a listener that has some idea or suggestion. Let us know. Reach out to us. And yeah, I was agreeing with you because what you were saying was factual, 100% factual, and the okay was me thinking about how many listeners can just take that alone and say, hey, you know what? My job when I'm in a leadership position is to take care of my men and women, and how you take care of your men and women is going to look different. And yes, were they doing their job? Factual statement. Did they go above and beyond? Factual statement as well.
Right.
And how we take care of our men and women is giving them the recognition and credit they deserve, because that's also part of the culture of an organization. When people know that they're cared about and that they're valued, they will stay in an organization.
Absolutely.
And even if they get offered more money to go do something else, I mean, look at how many veterans stay in the military, and they have, I know of veterans, I'm sure you know of some that had legitimate job offers on the outside, and they're like, no way, man, I love what I do.
Yeah.
And you're like, you barely make ends meet for your family of 5. Or, I had a buddy in the SEAL teams who had 5 kids. 5 kids. You know, you're not making a lot of money in the military.
Yeah.
5 kids.
Yeah.
And he had this amazing opportunity on the outside. Like, we're talking starting a good 6-figure base.
Yeah.
And he was like, I love what I do, man.
Yeah.
And because he also loved the brotherhood, he loved the community, he was valued. And so if you take anything from what Mike was saying, is take care of your people, give them the credit and recognition that they deserve. Not of a like, hey, here's your participation trophy. We're not talking about that.
Pizza party.
Yeah, and that's, gosh, yes, that's not culture. I was just talking with a client yesterday about this. We were doing a strategic debrief, and we were talking about improving their culture.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, it's not a pizza party. Now, hey, once in a while, those people, but generally just going, and here's why I also know that you did the right thing in regards to taking care of your men, because every single one of your men, from what I've heard, from the messages I've gotten and comments I've seen, they all know that you cared about them. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, that's what leaders have to be doing, is showing the men and women that work for you that you care about them. Mm-hmm. And you did that. And I love your humility as well in regards to, I should have done more, I could have done more. And I agree with all of that. And yes, as your friend, I agree with that. And that's the other thing. It's like, I'm also not going to take away from stuff just because you're my friend to protect you, because that's not a true friend. Like, if I was needing to hear something, you would tell me. I know that, factual, you know. So thank you for sharing that. Thanks, Lucas. That's a great way to start the morning.
Let's ask another
resting
one.
heart rate 117. No, I'm just kidding.
Mine?
Yeah. Well,
actually, I'm really thankful that you did ask that question, because like
and it's one of those things, like, as a civilian, like, I don't know, right? Like, you don't get bronze stars in the music industry, right? And so that's like, right? They weren't giving those away at Guitar Center, right? Like, I got, we found, like, our house, our landlord's remodeling our house, and my wife and I were going through, like, some old boxes, and she found, like, this plaque I got from Guitar Center that said, like, I won an award for integrity, and she was like, wow, that's a big deal. It's like, that means I showed up on time and not high. Like, that's what that means. That's not a real award. That's not any, like, I work with people that have real awards. That's not what this is. And I think I
just dribbled in my pants a little bit.
That's the truth, right? And so there's a lot of this stuff that kind of got me thinking about that, and
that's why he's poking the bear today. That's why he's poking the bear.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that, like, when you think about it from a civilian standpoint, it's hard not to think of everybody who served as, let's say, worthy of some type of award,
right?
Because of what y'all did, right? And especially those of us, though I know some of my friends have regret for not serving. I don't have that, because I was doing the things that I was called to do at the time, right?
Exactly.
Which is an
perfect
important
way
thing
to put that,
right? But at the same time, as an able-bodied guy who was in great shape in my teens and in my 20s, like, I see what y'all did, and even my friends who never saw any action, I'm like, bro, just for signing up during wartime, like, you not only have you earned my respect, but you're worthy of something because you knew the risk of what it would be, and especially you guys that saw action, particularly of the sort of intensity that you did. Mm-hmm. That was one of those things that, like, I'm reading the articles, I'm like, oh, this doesn't mention anything about it, but it doesn't say anything about anybody's stuff. So maybe it's just not something they mention in articles, or, who knows?
How could you possibly write something that long anyway? The story of the Operation Steel Dawn 2 is about the results, right? Like, the big picture, looking down, these guys, this square did this, this square did that, red and blue. He did that. That guy that wrote the job, I think he probably wrote a pretty good article. There's just, how could you possibly get all the details into it?
Yeah. It's not possible. Yeah.
And the article that I read was great. It was Colonel Nathan S. Lowry who wrote this article, and it's phenomenal. It's got some really incredible pictures. of some of the light armored vehicles.
Are there
And
pictures of the operation in there?
Yes, there are. There are a couple of pictures. This says...
Fun fact, we weren't allowed to take cameras.
Yeah, so this is during operation. This is a light armor tank. I'm looking at this defense imagery 1029, and it's got a bunch of other stuff in there. But it's in an article that's public, and it says a light armored vehicle from Task Force Highlander, 1st LAR, sits outside the Bahram Ka Bazaar on October 30 during Operation Steel Dawn 2.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's cool about this is you can see like the lights that you're talking about are showing up on these vehicles, the ones that like got taken out and those types of things.
So disco strobe light.
Validation. And there's pictures of the storm and the artillery imagery, which is just absolutely insane. The storm that delayed you guys was not like...
That looks like something from Revelations.
You kind of made it sound like it was like this little shower, and it was not. Like this full on looks like something,
That's
like
biblical
slash like Twister. Like I'm surprised you guys didn't get hit by a cow. So like, this is.
I had Dorothy in the back.
No, well there you go. And
Ben was my Dorothy. He was
Ben
angry.
who sounds like Jeff Brewer doing Chris Kattan. That Ben.
Yes.
Great.
So in that article, I believe Sonny described. So the first rain was biblical, right? That delayed us, and then the second rain that hit us while we were on the op, as we're approaching while we're in the foothills, and artillery setting up. Sonny describes. I think he said it was a dark cloud following us from north to south. Yeah, and it's in there. You'll find it in there because I believe I vividly remember that quote in. He doesn't even remember being interviewed for that deal. But.
Dude, what a stud!
Yeah, a solitary black cloud followed the Marines, eventually bringing rain thunder during the approach. Yep, and that's how he's describing it, as a black cloud.
That's awesome.
That blotted the sky.
You already had the advantage on the battlefield because our technology, and God's like, I got something else for you. We're going to make it hard for these booger eaters to move around.
And you want to talk about like, because word travels, right? Like even in third world country, no communication. So when I make it back to my AO and I'm sitting there talking to an elder, which was one of the ones that was the previous Mujahideen, like OG, like bad dude, good dude for us, but he said, "Man, what happened? What were y'all doing down there? I heard some things went off." And he's like, he was hearing chatter before it happened, and then after it happened, and he's like, I heard y'all got like worked down there. And I said, and he thought that, so, in your own little area of operation, I'm not blowing something up, like I don't want to make something sound bigger than it is, but in your own area of operation, you're known, right? I was known, right? So I'm the lieutenant, I'm the officer, like, so I was known, and I had nicknames, and some of them were good, some of them were bad, but I wasn't well liked in my AO by the Taliban for some reason. But they sent word up to this guy that I'd been killed. Like of course. And I'm talking to him, several weeks after when we finally get back to my AO, and he was like, "What are you doing here? I thought you died." And I was told, he was happy to see me. Yeah. And I was like, man,
that's incredible.
My Allah better than your Allah.
Yeah, exactly. I serve a real God. Yeah. Yours is fake.
And that's what I told him. And we weren't allowed to speak, like, I don't know if you remember this, but we were given rules. You were not allowed to talk about religion. Yep. Nothing. Like, it was a big no-no.
Yeah. We still prayed before every op, even right in front of the Iraqis on the Iraqi soldiers' base. It didn't matter. Right before we rolled out, we said a group prayer. Seth would always have me say the group prayer for the guys. We'd all get together. We'd hold hands. Or hands on each other's shoulders in a circle. And we would always do that. We didn't care because they're like, hey, and we're like, bro, you think you're going to tell me I can't say a group prayer with my guys before we go out here? And by the way, none of the leadership would have said that.
Right.
But
right.
Yes, but it's funny how the military puts that out, and I find it comical that because the Taliban was so badly defeated by your guys, they had to just make up complete blatant lies.
It was so
in
bad.
hopes that's amazing.
And it made me mad. I'm like, how dare you make these lies? Like, you guys are so good. But that's their job, right? They're propaganda masters.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like how they would just create a scene and then take pictures of it later. And you know, that's why we had to turn into cops with battle damage. That's
why we had to do the battle damage
that's
assessments.
a rat hole in itself.
Yeah, it is. It's not a bad one to go down because there's a lot of from that we can do in the future for sure.
Someday.
So you come back from the deployment, you decide to get out of the military.
Yep.
And what was your transition out like?
So I mean, I made the decision while I was still in Afghanistan. They asked me like, "Hey, are you staying in? Your EAS is coming up. What's your plan?" You're going to be in our community. You had to be recommended to stay in your MOS in your job as an officer. Yeah. Okay. So like, you know, the colonel's like, we're going to recommend that you stay in as an 03, which like big whoop. Basically, you didn't completely screw up. Like
that's a good thing.
No, it is a good thing, but it's like you have to be really naughty to like not be asked to stay. So I just said, you know what, we're not. LAR was at the time was not coming back to Afghanistan, so it's like we're exfilling. You know, you might come back once, but you're going to be an executive officer. You know, you're not. I was like, this. I came here. This is what I was. Like, this is why a lot of times, like, I kind of wish I wish I would have gone enlisted because I could have stayed in the fight a lot longer.
Oh,
right.
That's a very common theme from a lot of officers
that
didn't know that beforehand. They're like, oh, I'm going to be in combat all the time because I'm leading men in combat. And then you realize they pull you guys out so quick, which makes zero sense.
It's hard. I mean, I understand the process because you have to have leader, you know, it's just how things work. But that wasn't for me. I just wasn't, didn't have anything against it. So I left and moved back here in 2011, moved back to the same house that I live in Keller. So I bounced out, easy transition out, you know, as far as moving here. And I used that VA home loan, got me in 0 down.
Nice.
That was back in 2011 when it was hard. I mean, times were pretty tough around then. Homes were cheap.
Yeah.
So I was able to buy a home and so, you know, I come home and I don't realize what I don't realize. You don't know what you don't know. Like, so I started, you know, they say, the statistics say, the research says that 4 to 6 months post deployment, you really start feeling the effects of your deployment. Yeah. So I returned in December, and then I got out I went on terminal leave in May.
Okay.
So I come home and I start working for the family business. And I was offered a job in UAE to train.
Oh, nice.
Not offered a job, but a lot of interest was shown.
Got it.
So, and I kind of wanted to do that, but I also was like, I don't want to go. I just spent all this time training that group, and they're not very trainable. Like, they're not coachable. So,
no.
So I wasn't good at. I didn't have success with those guys because I was just. I'm pretty laid back. I'm fun. I like to have a good time. But when you just make me mad, I'm just not.
It just wasn't the environment for you.
I'm not nice. I'm just not nice. You know, when you're screwing up like that and you don't care, I'm just not good.
Yeah, it's not the screw up part. It's because they don't care.
Yeah, they don't
like,
care.
That's what bothers you.
Yeah, they're lazy. Yeah, whatever. They can't do jumping jacks.
Those are some of my favorite videos to watch.
If you need to, so right now, Lucas, use your nerd brain and go find a. Sorry.
No, it's true. I have a nerd brain. That's why I'm here.
That's a compliment. I have a nerd brain.
Afghan soldiers doing jumping jacks.
Yeah, just
find that.
Just treat yourself.
Treat yourself.
But yeah, so you know, coming out, I didn't realize that I had changed. I thought I was the same person.
Got it. Yeah.
And, over the 4 to 5 years that I was involved with the Marine Corps, they did change me. And the Marine Corps is by design changes you, right?
Yes.
Like that the first thing you do.
This is staged, right? Like
No,
this is a bit.
It is
real.
not staged.
That's real.
Yeah.
I have videos from when we were in Ramadi training these guys to do basic military movements, and it's some of the most comical.
Calisthenics is just not their thing.
But that's not a basic military movement. That's like you learn it in elementary school as part of the warm up for PE.
So imagine
And,
how the basic military movements are.
Just imagine how efficient they are at moving, shooting, and communicating.
Man.
They're
really good at shooting themselves.
So yes,
and each other.
Yes. We there's a thing, and it's real. It's called the death blossom.
Okay.
It's not sexual.
Good.
It's
help us keep our rating.
Yeah.
It's still there. I
Oh,
noticed
no,
that.
no, I
I
know.
looked.
Yeah.
You can take that out. It's so when you receive contact and you have a foreign national, Afghan, in my case, Afghan Army Border Patrol with you,
Sure.
their initial reaction was to pull the trigger and just do the spin. Like they
What?
just shoot in every direction. Not like Marine Corps is like, take cover, immediate, find the source, where it's coming from, face that source, assault through and destroy.
Yeah, like
Their reaction is,
yeah, if we're out in the middle of the streets, Mike and I are on our patrol, we get a contact, we'll call out contact front, contact right, contact left, wherever we're being contacted from. And if it's on the left, guess what? If my field of fire, meaning my roles and responsibilities, to the right, and I hear contact left, and Mike's is to the left, and we fall into our fields of fire, we scan, assess, we do our work, and then I might switch over to the left to shoot, because there might be a contact over here.
Sure.
And so if they would see shooting here, they would all just turn that way, and they would just like shoot crazy. And like
Everywhere.
Death Blossom would be just shooting everywhere.
So are you guys just like, as soon as they start
take cover.
Yeah.
There's
good
dude.
grief.
There's some guys in Lace Platoon and Charlie Platoon that have stories where they literally had to take the AKs out of the guy's hands before they ended up shooting the whole platoon on accident.
No
Yep.
way.
That's crossed borders as well. That's been known to happen in
Yes.
Helmand Province.
Yeah.
And you can't just turn off friendly fire.
Nope.
Right. That's why these people, and I know I probably put myself in that category a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about my wife and I playing Gears of War 3, which we've moved on now. We're on Gears 4.
Oh. I was wondering.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to keep you in the loop. So, like, you can just turn friendly fire off. Right, and all these folks that are like, oh, you know what, I'm really great at Call of Duty, I probably would have been fine in the war. Like, no, you wouldn't have.
No.
No, you wouldn't have.
Wouldn't trust you at all.
No, and you can't just duck behind cover and then like magically heal. That's not how real life works.
Yeah.
No.
Sometimes if your medic's good, like if you have a good
Well,
doc.
hey, if you have Johnny Kim working on you, you might come back to full health.
hey, my doc was pretty.
Was he
outstanding.
squared away?
No, he was squared away. He was good. He was. We had to give him an IV one night, and it's a different 100 complete different story, but fun story. But yeah, we had to. The poor kid. He's the only met doc I have in the platoon.
So he's taking care of everybody selflessly the whole time.
Yes, and
Yeah.
he's going on multiple patrols a day. Right.
And what did he get on that deployment? Probably nothing. See, that's what's crazy. Just stirring the pot again, but just think about that. This medic is going on multiple combat deployment or patrols a day to take care of the guys, to fix the guys, and it's just like he came back and they're probably like
Stopping in the middle for an IV bag. And
Insane.
continuing to push, like, and not whining, not complaining.
What a
His
stud.
complaint was coming up to me and saying, "Sir, I'm about to collapse." You know what I mean? Like, I can't, if something happens right now, I can't do my job.
how many men have actually ever pushed themselves to that limit? I know probably of a handful, you as well.
Yeah.
But for our listeners, I want you guys to think about that, what he just said, because the obligation that he had to his job and talk about a great team member.
Mm-hmm.
His only focus was taking care of his men so that they could accomplish the mission.
Yep.
To the point where his health was getting ready to completely compromised.
Yeah, his health was compromised.
And let's talk about the lasting effects of that deployment, of him literally living in dehydration, of just the physical wear and tear on his body, but his internal system. He will have health issues for the rest of his life because of that deployment. And it was because he was doing his job.
I had 7 kidney stones in 2011.
We're in the kidney stone club.
Yay!
Let's go.
And the VA was like, "That's not service related." I was like, "Okay, thank you." It has nothing to do with the melted plastic water bottles whatsoever.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
or the suicide vest that went off by you, and that explosion that ripped through your body, causing internal damage. But
which you can kind of like, that might be blue on blue because Fred shot the guy. Like,
that's when you're like,
Fred
bro,
blew him up.
You're like, hey, instead of to the chest, 1 on the head, let's go 3 to 5 to the head next time.
No,
Cut off
how
the
about
light
20?
switch.
How about 25? Mike to the chest.
That makes this needs to be a movie. I want to see that replicated. That's incredible.
Not the movie part. I'm like,
yes,
way to go, Fred. Like, because once again, you and I are going to have some conversations offline about some of this stuff, but like, yes.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Amazing.
And like, so, and that's not just Fred. You know, Absher, he did the Sonny's gunner. Damon, Platz's gunner. Those guys did all the stuff like that. And like the quick reaction, all of them responding.
Eliminating a suicide vest before it can go off because of the situational awareness, and those guys just dialed in.
And the guy, and also a RPG team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they came running across, and I don't.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah,
We'll
so
talk about it more later.
Fred's the man.
Yeah,
Fred's the man. So Matt Ginther, he's the man.
Let's go, buddy.
So anyway, getting out, I don't want to go back into all that stuff.
Yeah, no, you changed, and like
I changed.
every service member goes in the military,
Yep.
and they're going to be a different person. But it's also like, for those that are listening that have never served in the military, as you get older, life changes you.
Absolutely.
And you just weren't aware of the drastic changes that had happened.
Right.
Because for you, everything that you had seen and done, and everything that you did, everything that you said, all those things just make sense. It's who you are. It's a lifestyle that you're a part of. But then you come back to civilian world here in Keller, Texas, and it's like, oh, I need to be maybe a little more mindful.
Yeah, I can't verbal chokeslam people. I can't do things that I used to do. I can't haze you. I can't,
it's frowned upon.
I mean, I went from a dictatorship full of studs and then now here I am working with people that don't really like their job, you know? So it's like, but the Marine Corps does a fantastic job of stripping down who you are and rebuilding your identity. Right. And so what the military, I'm not just going to say, Department of Defense does not a good job at is allowing or teaching us how to strip away some of that identity that was given to us and reestablishing a new identity. Yeah. Now, it took me a year or so. You know, I didn't really go to church at that time, you know, from June 2011 to 2012. I wasn't plugged in. I was secluded, isolated, you name it. You know, I was in my house. I worked. I came home. I shut the blinds all weekend, you know, and play video games.
Were you doing the family business at this time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk? What is that?
What the family business was? So my dad he started a commercial roofing company.
Oh, cool.
In the late 90s.
Got it.
So, you know, I was helping with that. I was doing that. I was working with my brother-in-law. And so I would just isolate after, you know, I'd either go lift and then I'd come home, I'd shut the blinds, turn on Call of Duty and get a bottle of my buddy Jim and that was it. That's what I did. And so I was just completely isolated. I don't want to say that I was like, I mean, I probably struggled with things. I had things that had happened to me. I had events, you know, I had even more hurts throughout 2011, 2012. I got into a relationship that wasn't good. And however, but God, like through that relationship, I ended up one day at Milestone Church.
Let's go.
One Sunday, and I sat through the service, and I just wept. Right, like Jeff Little was going on about identity, and I was like, I don't have one. What is mine? I don't have one anymore. Who am I? And like literally, who am I? And so after that service, I sent him a message on Facebook, and I'm like, hey, this is who I am. Help. Help me. And he responded within 30 minutes, like, I mean, here's a guy who's a pastor of a 5,000 person church at the time, like, and that's my pastor. Like, he is now, and he is a pastor. He's not a speaker. He's not a preacher. He is my pastor, and he's a developer, and he's a discipler. And I'm one of the one, that he always talks about. I was the one, and he connected me immediately to a guy named by Chris Taylor, who was one of the pastors there at the time. And Chris called me that night. Like, and not like, I wasn't like, I'm going to hurt myself, or I just said, hey, this is who I am. Yeah. Like, this, I don't know who I am now. I'm struggling with identity, what you said, what you preached on, like all this stuff. And so Chris and I met on like Tuesday or Wednesday for lunch, and I was drinking at the bar. I was so nervous before he walked in. Like, he walked in, and it was that Longhorn hibachi place in Keller. Yep. I was sitting there at that little bar at like 11 a.m. like just take, because I was nervous and I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm a believer too, right? Like at the time, I'm a believer, and but I'm nervous about what's about to happen to me, or is this going to work? And so Chris walked in, and he's just like, "What's up, dude?" And so we start talking, we start hanging out. He starts giving me steps to take. And, you met him. Yeah. And he took me through, he's like, here's this step, here's this step, here's this step. And that's my mindset. I need a process. I need a step to take. I need to be led. My desire is to be led by I need good leadership. I want good leadership.
I think we all desire that, right?
We're designed for that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, we are designed to be led, and we are designed to be connected. Yes. And so Chris immediately started giving me books to read. He's like, here's a boundaries book, here's this, here's that, read this, come back to me. He wasn't like, with the beauty of what these guys do, the discipleship process at Milestone Church is, and it's not Milestone's idea, it's Jesus's idea. Like, it's all comes from
the Bible.
It all comes from how Jesus led us, right, or led his disciples. That's the whole thing, right? It's not. And Milestone will probably tell you, this isn't our idea. Yeah. This comes from the Word. So here's your step, here's your process, here's how you work through this, here's how you work through that. And then so slowly but surely, I just was working through things. I got in a new relationship, and then that was failing. I was engaged, and I was about to go into a marriage that just wasn't okay. I'm still learning, right? Like, everything's a process. You don't just, if you think that you're just going to read the Bible one day, or listen to a podcast, or go to one sermon and then just think everything's better, you're wrong. That's not how it works. Now,
yeah, I went for a run last week, and it's weird. My cardio is not back.
Yeah, right. I'm still fat.
I ate healthy for a day last week, and I'm still overweight.
Yeah, I didn't eat for 3 days. I don't have abs. What's wrong? So it's
you were intentional.
Yeah, I was intentional, but I was led. I was discipled. I was, and then through that process, I start meeting other people. I meet Steve Chestnut. You know, I meet Ron Stagel. I meet there's some guys that probably don't want to be say that I recognize it. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just like, you know, Jed Walker.
Yeah.
These are pastors in my church, and these are guys. Once again, some churches you go to, it's just like they're too cool to talk to you. You know, like you can't. We'll give you a couple to talk to. Like, no, these guys want to be in the weeds with me. They got in the weeds with me. All these guys have led me through development groups. I've been in small groups, and you know, Chris really harped on me. He said, you've got to have anchor points. And I'm like, well, what's an anchor point? And he goes, they're the men in your life that you're tethered to, you know, that keep you from, you know, they keep you in check. They keep you from, they're your guide. They're the people that God places in your life to help steer your ship, to help anchor you on the foundation that Jesus has built for you.
That's awesome.
And so, you know, these guys are my anchors. Pastor Tyron, you know, like, but Pastor T, Jeff Peltier, you know, Jed Walker, these guys are people that I will call. And I've been blessed over the 10 years of just intentionally seeking these guys out, because if you're not intentional, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Yeah. Like, if you're not intentional in your walk, if you're not intentional really in anything you're doing, but when you're talking about with your faith, with your spiritual life, if you're not intentional, you will be stagnant. You'll just float, or you'll sink. Mm-hmm. So I was very intentional about building relationships, building, you know, connections with these people. And so now, am I perfect? No. Do I have everything figured out? No. But when I'm confused, or when I don't know what's going on, or, you know, like if I have a business issue, or if I'm concerned about something in business, I call Jeff Peltier and I say, what do I do here? This is what's going on. And he's like, this is what, here, boom, 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 boom. You know, let's pray about this. Let's talk about this. I'll see you on Saturday. You know, we can talk about it a little bit more. Or, you know, Jed Walker, he's walked me through a lot of things. When Pastor Chris Taylor left, he's got 5 kids. So the ministry is hard. It's hard to provide for your family as a pastor with 5 kids. And so he moved on. So when he still attends Milestone Church, when he left as a pastor, you know, Jed Walker was kind of the guy that took me over and put me under his wing. He leads and guides me. Mike Banis, you know, he's my prayer guy. Like when I need some prayer, when I need something going on, I call Pastor Mike. When I need some guidance with my marriage, I call Pastor T. Or if guidance about really anything, or just want someone to talk to, I call Tyron Caswell. Yeah, you know, like same. I mean, he's a stud. You know, all these guys are studs. Yeah. So I kind of went no, but like that's so I get plugged into Milestone. I get in another relationship that I shouldn't have been in. Get engaged. You know, this was a time where I fasted, right? So I'm talking to Chris, and I'm like, hey, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. My mom was like, are you really going to marry this girl? You know, my dad was like, what are you doing? Like, you're obviously unhappy. Do not. Like, what are you thinking? Yeah. And Chris was like, you know how to listen to God. So what do you think you should do if you really want to hear from God? And I'm like, pray. Like, you know, he was like, fast, idiot. Like, so I fasted for days, and I was having a talk, and, you know, while I was fasted, you know, I'm told, you know, let her go. Those are the words, let her go. Yeah. So I called off the engagement on January 1 of 2015. And Chris and his wife, April, Chris is a brother to me. His wife is a sister. And she said, you're fired. Like, you're no longer choosing your women.
Oh, I was like, whoa.
Like, you just suck at this. Like, we're going to pick your women from now. So then they started setting me up with women, and I'm like, hey, this is great. I don't even have to try. They're all hot, like, like it's
freaking legend. Unbelievable.
Amazing.
Wait, are you going to cut something out?
Nope.
No, not at all.
Nope.
So
nope. Poor Mike Mitchell.
Yeah, I know. It was awful.
I feel so bad.
Hey,
bag of gold is so heavy to carry.
Yeah,
right
no
now.
kidding.
Hey,
Unreal.
when you're ugly, you just. Clint Bruce always says, he's like, we're not smart, we're just pretty. As he's talking about officers, I'm like, how do you do this? Or he's like, I'm not smart, I'm just pretty.
Coming from Clint Bruce, who literally looks like a silverback gorilla.
Yeah, him and Jocko could be brothers. Like they look,
Dude,
they look very much alike.
He's also local. I'm gonna get him on the podcast. Former SEAL, warrant officer in the SEAL teams. He's a stud.
I found out last episode what a warrant officer was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also played linebacker in the NFL.
Really?
He's just an underachiever. And now has a really successful company doing training, and he's a speaker. And
apparently it's only because he's so pretty.
He is gorgeous.
Something to behold.
He is. So he's. I call him Big Spoon. We met at a Marine Corps ball. Like I'm Little Spoon, he's Big Spoon. But this is just like a clip of our previous text. Like,
Wow.
So he co-founded Carry the Load, which is a fairly big organization in the area. And
you've ever heard of Carry the Load? They do a thing every Memorial Day weekend where it's this. Yeah, we'll talk about it more afterwards.
You know what? Yeah,
the big walk.
Yeah, it's a huge walk, and
he
and you carry like a ruck.
Yeah, if you want.
Yeah.
They have flags for every fallen service member. They have pictures of all the fallen service members.
Yeah.
I go every year, and I find my guys, and it's an incredible event that they do.
Yeah, the guys from we've got some friends that used to work for The Ticket, which is a big DFW sports station, and they always promoted Carry the Load and did a big thing out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible. That's a really cool thing.
So Clint Bruce is he's just a good human.
Yeah,
so.
he was just on Marcus Luttrell's
what's
podcast? Their TNQ? Don't
Team Never Quit.
Never Quit.
TNQ.
Yeah, he was just on. He was just on with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So.
So you're
influential,
horrible.
very dude.
Yeah. So go back. You got fired.
You got fired. I'm not allowed to pick out women anymore. They're just showing up at my front door. It'll make you even more upset because my wife was basically just put right in front of me. Like, so we want to talk about like relationships and how important they are, and and we can joke about it, but it's true. Like I was intentional.
Power of relationships.
I was intentional with my relationships. I gave more than I got in my relationships, or my heart was postured right in my relationships, right? Yeah. Like people can sniff out when you want something from them.
Intent has a smell.
Yeah, and exactly. And so I just loved these people, and I still do love these people. I try my best to give more than I get. Mm-hmm. But with Chris and April, they were just, the amount of hours, hundreds, I'm not kidding you, hundreds of hours on the phone Chris Taylor's been on me, not as a friend, but as my mentor, as the crowns on that dude's head just from me, just from whatever impact I have on the kingdom are largely due to his leadership and his mentorship to me. And that's once again just by design and how it's supposed to work. So, they had me set up with a few girls, and I go on. We had nicknames for all of them, right? So like we had dentist. There was a dentist, and I'm fast forwarding to the part where I meet my wife because my wife was called school teacher, and she was Chris and April's. One of their kids' third grade teacher. And so randomly April walks up to Emily at an event. She's like, hey, are you seeing anyone? And Emily's side of the story is pretty amazing itself. I'm not going to take away from her story, but she was going through a lot of things. And she's like, well, yes and no. And so she's like, I got a guy for you to meet. And she showed her my picture, and Emily was like, that's the guy. Like she told her about me a little bit, like he's a Marine, this and this, and she showed her picture. She's like, "That's my guy." And I'm
amazing.
like, what's wrong? I had hair, I think, in the picture that she showed her. She showed her a picture when I was like 20, right? Like, so it's like a little bit of
Haven't changed a bit.
Favorite, yeah, I haven't changed.
Straight out of like boot camp or come back from deployment where you're just all shredded.
Yeah. Well, I looked like a melted candle when I came back from my deployments, or my deployment, singular. I was not. No, I did not. I was not shredded. So they set us up, and a unique part of my story is that I struggled with depression, and just I had an evil oppression on me for a long time, and I was isolated intentionally, and I was doing to myself, the enemy was doing to me what I did to my enemy in Afghanistan. Like, I was so good at just isolating and just picking them apart, right? And I turned into the prey. And he was doing exactly to me what I knew I shouldn't be allowing for myself. I put myself in very vulnerable spots. And I was very, very close, to, just hurting myself, and in some form or fashion. But I get a call one night, and Chris is like, "Hey, you need to come to church tomorrow." It was a Saturday night. And I was like, "I'm good. I already went tonight." He's like, "No, school teacher's coming to church tomorrow, so you should probably be there." I'm like, "Okay, I'll be there." I was like, "But just so you know, I'm going out with the dentist at noon. Like, I had another date set up, so don't make that weird." And so I pull up and I go to see him, and it's at the old church service or the old building. And I walk in, and Emily's on the other end, and I walk, and I'm kind of like, I look over, and I know what she looks like already, and I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, boy.
And then so after the service, we start talking, and it was just an immediate connection. They had to kick us out. Like, we're sitting there talking in the aisle, and then like the next service starts, and they're like, "Hey, y'all got to move," And so we go out, and we're talking, and Chris was like, he knew her situation. She was in a different situation. He's like, "You can't call her for like you just don't call her for a day or two." And I was just like, "Okay, I won't." And then of course I called her that night. But I left, or I went to Chris after I met her. She leaves, and we had a great conversation. I was like, "Yup." And I said, do I have to go on my next date? Do I have to go to this 12 o'clock? And he was like, "Yes, you have to go." And so I went, and that girl knew I wasn't interested. Like, I wasn't interested at all. Like, it could have been J-Lo. Like, I would have been like,
didn't matter.
Cool.
You had already met the love of your life.
Yeah, it was over. Like, I was done. And so I was like, which is probably part of the reason why April had to take over for me, because I was like, I would choose things. I was just, at that point in your life, pretty quickly when you meet someone if you like them or not.
You do.
So,
I knew the first night I met Amanda.
Yeah.
And when we talked, I was like, "Yep,
that's it."
Yep.
And so we started dating. We met March 1st of 2015. We were engaged July 7th, married by December 15th. So it's like, but it's funny because it's like, that's how God plans. That's how his design is, like, not to just not to play games, not to do this. If you're doing things the right way, you're abstaining before marriage, like, you're figuring things out. And after, I think, the June timeframe, Chris asked me, he's like, "Hey, so do you like her?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Well, do you see yourself maybe like marrying her?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "So what are we doing?"
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And I was like, "Eating?"
eating this
We're eating lunch.
I mean, we're eating lunch together.
Yeah. Eating chicken.
What did you think this was? Unreal. Man.
So that was the moment he was like, bro, like if you're gonna, but it's once again mentorship, discipleship. He's like,
it's amazing.
People pushing me all along the way, guiding me, my anchor points, like, and these are people that they want what's best for you, but through, I don't even know how to explain it, but they want what's best for you, not through their own desires, not through what they think, but through their relationship and their connection to God, their ability to speak to you, and that's what anchor points are for. That's what this by design, once again, these people that you have in your lives. That's how God speaks to us, right? It's not always going to be, it's not always one way that God's going to speak to you. He uses the people that are around you that He's placed in your life to speak to you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I explained that very well.
No, you did, you did, and I'm glad that you did, because that's what I wanted to reiterate. Is it's so important to have people in your life that want you to win, that are looking to help give you the correct guidance when needed, not dictate what you do, but to say, hey, think about the power of what he did, like the power of how he did that with you, instead of going, hey man, you need to get married. You need to ask this girl to marry you.
Yeah.
You probably would have pushed back a little bit, because we don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
However, you respected him, clearly.
Yep.
And now you have a couple who they're also leaning into God to give you correct guidance and wisdom.
Right.
And now, instead of him saying, hey, bro, you need to put a ring on that finger.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, do you like her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so do you see yourself marrying her? Yeah. Okay. Well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It was allowing you to see the mirror yourself and going, I love this woman. She's everything I ever have prayed for and wanted for.
Yep.
And, she is my Proverbs 31.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at that and you're like, yeah, you know what? I should probably marry her.
Yeah. And she's hot.
You have a beautiful wife.
On top of that, too.
All three of us definitely outkicked our coverage.
I outpunted. Yeah. Everybody at my wedding told me that, too. Like, you outpunted your coverage. Just like, thanks.
I actually, the joke about like, hey, my wife is so much more beautiful than me. When we were at the grocery store, the lady put a divider between our stuff. That happened 2 weeks ago to me. I'm glad you guys find this
probably
funny.
didn't have your hair gel in. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a Navy SEAL thing, right?
It's because I have hair and you don't. If you had it, you would probably do something with it.
I wouldn't use
I put a hat on.
I'm not allowed to use hair gel because I'm not a Navy SEAL, though.
Whatever. Anyways.
That's the.
Yeah.
Do y'all know that's a joke about you?
Oh yeah, we do. We always joke about making up our own hair gel one day.
I will buy it.
It'll be the next product Jocko comes out
Jocko
with.
talked about that
Oh my
jokingly
gosh.
on an academy session.
Yeah, it would have like extra vitamin E and
but
grass-fed vitamin E.
Yeah,
Jocko's hair gel.
His whole thing was like, hey, Echelon Front, we're not going to come up with hair gel because that's not on, like, a lot of our guys don't have hair. Well, at the beginning, that was factual. And then now the team has grown. Dave Burke has a good amount of hair. Steve Ward,
Gandy. Oh,
flowing locks. Cody's hair. Carlos Mendez,
luscious
hair, bro. Like, it's disgusting how
Lucas
how
Pinkard.
amazing his hair is.
Lucas Pinkard is thinning on top, which is why he wears ball caps.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So
Just wanted to make
Get
sure
that
you
guidance.
knew that I knew that was a.
No,
I was trying. I wasn't
I know. I know
personally
it's a joke.
attacking you.
No, I don't care. I wouldn't care if you were. But yeah, that happened.
hair does look nice.
The lady put the separation between, and she's like, she
Totally
looks, she's like,
minded
"Are
that.
you guys together?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's my wife." She goes, "Okay."
Oops. I'm offended.
Didn't see that coming.
I took it as a compliment. I'm like,
For
bro,
sure.
yes, I
That's right.
I understand your confusion, ma'am. However,
Yeah. Well, I can't go out to bars and stuff at night because my wife just gets hits on. Like, like when we go to dinner, like, not like we're going to in cahoots.
No.
We're going to dinner somewhere at a restaurant, and my wife goes to the bathroom and she comes back and she's like, some creepy guy was trying to buy me a drink, and I'm like, well, where is it? Like, Bring it to me.
I was always told.
Hey,
that,
sure, my husband drinks this.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of her response.
Yeah, I was always told that if nobody's hitting on your girl, then that means you got the ugly girl. So, I think we're doing all right.
I'm going to steer away.
Yeah, I was like, let's not open up this. All right, so you decide you want to get married.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys get married.
Yes, we get married December 2015. And start. I at the time I'm still working for my family.
Okay.
I'm still a work in progress, right? So everything is process. I'm still working through things. And I'll never be done. Obviously, none of us will ever be done. But so I had a hard time getting along with my dad, and with the family business stuff was just kind of coming to a head, and so I decided to leave. I had some ratings already as a pilot, so I went and started flying, as a corporate pilot. I was doing that for a little while, and then I kind of started having, I started realizing that there were some effects from combat, not mental, obviously, but I was having some physical effects that were starting to that I was starting to recognize. I'd seen them, I felt them, but I'm like, I started like, as we get older, we get smarter, right? It's just like, don't push it to the side. So, it forced me to take a step back. I had to make a decision. Like, I can't lie, because to be able to fly, you have to have a medical given to you by the government, which, government. Yeah. When the government gets involved in anything, it makes things difficult. But
weird.
If I didn't want to base my my income off of this medical, and I was just worried about it, and it was something, once again. Discernment is a key player in a lot of things that I do. I try to do the best that I can to stay, once again, connected to my relationship with God, and being able to understand when the Holy Spirit's trying to tell me things. And once again, when people like Jed Walker, Tyron Caswell, Chris Taylor, Mike Baina, these guys, Jesse Wagner are telling me these things, like, they're not speaking into my situation, but they're speaking to me. And if you're listening, if you're there with the correct posture, you're going to hear.
Yeah.
And so I stepped away from being a pilot, which, was God's protection. And in protecting it is because God's protection there was because a year ago, I got a letter from the FAA saying, you're under investigation, pal. Like, you lied on your medical. You have reported, you've been given or classified, whatever, diagnosed with TBI, and through the VA, and we've seen those notes. We traded notes with the VA and the FAA, so you lied on this government document. You're under investigation. We're pulling all your stuff. And I was able to tell them, the flight surgeon, like, pretty important dude, I was on the phone with, like, I was freaking out. Like, I was like, I might be, because guys are going to jail it was a huge crackdown. They went after veterans and pilots, and a lot of these guys are like American Airlines, United, Delta, Southwest pilots are getting hammered by FAA for lying on their medicals, saying that they weren't receiving any type of disability benefits. And so when they cross-referenced with the VA, and since the VA was so helpful in passing along our documents to them, since it's it is a place for us to be safe, to say the things that we're having problems with. We are allowed to go there and be safe and feel comfortable in pointing out the things that we struggle with. Yeah. They pass that along to the FAA. And so the FAA hits me like, well, you had alcohol dependency. You had alcohol problems. You struggled with this, and this, and this. And I'm like,
past tense,
number one. Number two, how did you get that? Number three, I was never diagnosed with like alcohol dependency disorder. Like, I've never heard of that. So anyway, I was like, I'm not going to fight this. I told it, right? So it's like, once again, safe place, VA, thank you. And it's, don't get me fired up on that.
Yeah. Okay, so it was God's covering over
God's
you.
covering over me, and so I was able to tell that flight surgeon who was ready to put me under investigation. I was able to tell him, I haven't flown an airplane since 2018 because of the things you're talking about. Not the alcohol stuff, but the traumatic brain injury thing. Like, that's when I found that out. That's whenever I understood what this was. And I stopped flying because of, and here's why. And he goes, okay, I see it. I see what you did.
I have integrity.
Yeah. I said, I saw maybe this coming up. I was afraid of this phone call and me being with American, because I would have been with, at that time, I would have been transitioning to American Airlines.
Wow.
And so that once again, God's protection, God using people in our lives to speak to us through them, and not directly, not saying, thus saith the Lord, not saying like, you shouldn't do this or God's telling me to do this. It's just through their wisdom and their connection to the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit just coming out. And when you're, once again, it's all about the posture of your heart, your ability to sit there and listen and hear not just what the words are coming out, but what the Holy Spirit's trying to say to you. I heard it. Yeah. And it was a protection. So at that time I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go back to being blue collar. I'm going to go, I just finished grad school. I got my master's in business from University of Texas, which was weird because I was a Texas A&M grad, which just people didn't like that, but I didn't really care. But got a C in leadership.
I don't even know the difference.
I got a C. Well, once again, you really understand hockey. So,
by the way, I'm sorry. I gotta use that line Monday night when I was flying back. We're getting ready to board the flight, and I had been delayed. And this guy's like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss the game." Blah blah blah. He's like talking about the game. I guess it was like the football playoff game recently.
National championship. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a big game, allegedly. And people are all all fired up about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, telling me all this stuff, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I'm not a big like hockey fan. I don't follow hockey. He was like, what? Like, literally gets mad at me. I was like, oh. And like somebody else heard what I did. He knew what I did. And this dude in the background was like dying, laughing, like slaps his wife. He's like telling his wife.
You can see him jiggling in front of you.
Yeah, and he was like, this guy was like, he's like going through all this stuff. I'm like, I'm just kidding. He's like, oh man, you got me.
You think?
It was incredible. Sorry to interrupt you, but yes.
Let's check your resting heart rate right now.
Yeah, no joke.
Ow.
Which is great. This guy was so fired up about a college. One, he'd never been to either one of them.
Right.
He has zero connections to them. But anyways, it's important.
He's more of a man than you.
It's good to have hobbies. Okay, so boom, transition out. God's protection over that.
Yeah.
Go back to blue collar. So do you go back to the family business? Do you start your own business?
Yeah. So I went and started my own business. My brother-in-law, who I'd worked with since I got back, great relationship. Great dude, very intelligent, very smart. He knows, he's just, us two together makes a perfect team when it comes to operating and running a business. So we started our own deal at the very end of 2018, just coming out like straight up no money. Like I think my W-2 for 2018 was $23,000 or something crazy like that. Like Emily was my sugar mama as a school teacher. So it was like, but once again, like you don't like, we were perfectly fine. We were okay with it, and so we were able to kind of get through that, and we started the business. I was able to get a line of credit thanks to the knowledge that I gained from my MBA, just the credibility of walking in and saying to a bank and saying I have an MBA from University of Texas, which is,
that's awesome.
I got through that without, once again, God's grace through my wife, like pushing me. I didn't know that there was a 3.0 minimum GPA at grad school. So like you're talking to the homeboy that graduated at 2.4, and so my first semester, I got a 2.95 or something like that. And I was just like, I was pumped.
Crushing it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm crushing it. And then I got a letter saying you're on probation. If you don't fix it after one semester, you're kicked out. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I was like, well, good. I've got leadership next semester. I'll just get a C in that, and which I did. So turns out we didn't get into that earlier, but the professor was a real peach. Really humble guy, just super humble. His dad was a Vietnam Marine, and his dad was a sergeant in the Marine Corps who hated his leadership.
Oh, that's awesome.
And his leadership being a second lieutenant. And so that guy, my opinion, he didn't really think I belonged there because my GMAT was low. Like, I got in just off of charisma alone. I just interviewed well, and I had the reputation of Marine Corps officer, veteran, blah, blah, blah. And so they let me in, literally. I didn't earn a spot in that program. So I got through it, but I was able to use that. I was able to leverage that. And I started my company, and we're going on our sixth year now.
Awesome.
We've had pretty much, last year was not a growth year, but we've grown every year prior to that. And so, once again, the steps that we take, the processes that we're in, God's provision always seems to come through.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There's a lot of stories of stepping out in faith. People have those stories, especially when it comes to money. But I told my wife when I met her, if you want to be with me, you're going to go to this church. We are going to tithe. These are the things that we're going to do. We're going to serve. We're going to do that. As for me and my house, we are going to serve the Lord. And
that's amazing.
So this is who we are. This is our definition. This is my identity.
Yeah.
And I really want to go back to identity because I really wanted to hit on that earlier. Was we miss that coming out of the service. We miss finding our identity. We miss, capitalizing on the things that we have, the things that are available to us, and understanding that our identity is given to us through God alone. Yeah. And, Paul tells us what our identity is. We're valued, we're loved, we're precious. And, we need to hear those things. We men need to hear those things. Yeah. In our culture, our identities are attacked as men. We're told we're not this, if you don't make this, then you're not that. If you aren't doing this many push-ups, then you're not that. Like, if you're not, I'm thinking, like, I'm looking at Jocko. I'm like, if you don't wake up at 4:30 like Jocko does, then you're wrong. Like,
yeah, and there's so many people that think that, and you're like,
he's not saying that.
He's just,
this is what I do. Like, if you're not,
he's just showing you discipline. That's his discipline.
Yeah, that's what what works for him, and that's not to speak to that, but
no, I'm glad that you did, because that is a big thing with identity, in regards to people are comparing their identity, they're comparing themselves, they're comparing their success to somebody else that they don't even know if it's real or not. Now, I'm telling you, I know it's real with Jocko, but I'm saying most of the people that people compare themselves to on social media, you're comparing them to the best version that they can possibly show, because it's a game.
Yeah, take 13. The 13th picture, or
Yep, exactly. This is a 20-second video I've shot to get the perfect. Yeah, and so
I know how many selfies you took of me and you on that post that you did right here several weeks back. So there was one.
Yep, let's go.
One and only one. That's how many takes it takes to get me looking beautiful.
That's why we call him One Take Dinnell.
Oh man! So you set those parameters.
Might want to take that out.
No, that's real. First time we tried, pregnant with twins. When we literally were like, we're going to try for kids.
I'm not One Take Mitchell. I'm not One Take Mike.
Well,
multiple takes.
I can't wait for this segment of the podcast to come up in our group text with our wives. So anyways, you set those parameters with your wife in regards to, hey, this is going to be our identity in Christ. I mean, that's just the foundation of who you guys are.
Yep.
And, so what do you do to, I know we kind of got to wrap it up soon, but I would like to know, like, how do you push yourself physically? Like, what do you do throughout the year, or is there certain things you like to do to set as a test, just to kind of keep yourself accountable to yourself in regards to health and fitness, so that you can be a good example to your daughter and to you and your wife's future kids?
Right. So I really just, man, I'm trying to think of something not professional to say, but so I got into. For health reasons, because I want to have longevity. My family has a history of heart attacks, men dying early, so I just wanted to make sure that I have good health, and so I got into endurance type stuff.
Nice.
I was going to make a Goggins reference, but I probably...
He's a great athlete.
He is a great athlete.
Just got to put mute on his videos if you're trying to not feel yourself.
I don't know,
unless you're Patty Pemberton.
Yeah,
who is my new hero.
Dude's amazing.
Just calling out David Goggins. Anyway.
He's everyone's hero.
Yes.
Yeah. Patty the Baddie, baby.
Patty the Baddie is a big hero of the SEAL teams. I'll just put that there.
Yep.
So, all right, endurance.
So I was not inspired by David Goggins. I was inspired by Ron Stagel, who's a pastor at our church. He's started doing this triathlon stuff, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And my buddy, a good friend of mine, he's a Army, well, he was a Marine 0311 Army Ranger on his way to Green Berets, and got in a little bit of he got out, and he works for Lockheed Martin now. He's one of the best dudes I've ever met in my life. Milestone dude. We met at CrossFit. So we were talking like, hey, how can we challenge ourselves? Let's push ourselves. And he's like, let's do a triathlon. I'm like, that sounds dumb. Like, it sounds terrible. And so he's like, we can try it. It's not a big deal. Let's just go do a sprint triathlon or something. I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound bad. So we tried it. He hated it. He's not a swimmer. He wasn't a fan, but he's just a big, strong dude. When he would swim, his legs would be. He's like a big
dragging.
Yeah, he's just
couldn't engage his core properly.
I think it was just because his legs were so full of muscle. It
was technique.
I'm trying to.
Sure.
His technique was off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got into triathlon, and so I was already a strong swimmer. Maybe not by your standard, but.
The Marine Corps has good high standards for swimming.
So I was a good swimmer in the Marine Corps, and I still I'm good at that. And then running I'm not good at, but I'm dumb, so I'm good at it because I can just
shut it off.
Yeah, I can just glaze over. Like I'm the guy that I sent you a meme. I'm the guy that can work out without headphones,
yeah,
without music, without pre-workout. Like I'm just weird like that. Like even Pastor Tyron's like, I don't get it. Like, how do you do that?
I'm a little envious of it because, it would be nice just to be able to just go.
Yeah,
I'm like, all right, I gotta get.
It'd be nice. It'd be nice if it's like, this is where I connect to God. This is where I do this and that. I'm like, no, I just blank. There's some truth there, but it's also.
Yeah, okay.
Not as true. So I just got into that. Then I started. Pastor Ron does Ironman, so he was like, "Hey, why don't you do an Ironman with me?" And so that's what I do now. I train year round.
Was he sitting in front of us last night?
No,
that wasn't Pastor.
No, that wasn't Pastor. Pastor Ron is the Hazlitt campus pastor.
Oh, I haven't met him.
No, you haven't, but you need to.
Okay, have him come to one of our group workouts with the guys.
He might.
Okay, let's go. Anyways,
come on, Ron. So yeah, you need to meet him. Yeah, okay. Like his story is incredible. But so I ran an Ironman or a half. I do half Ironmans. I don't do the full ones. But so I just got into that, train year round, have a fantastic coach. Emily, once again, is 100% supportive of that, which is pretty important. But
that is huge.
The amount of time that I spend on my bicycle or I'm running, or I try to do it as much as I can during the day or during lunch or whatever. But she, once again, she I don't want to say allows, but she she encourages me.
You guys are aligned.
Yeah, we are 100% aligned on that. Not all, but yeah, she encourages, she pushes, she says, you better not miss a workout. Like, I've got a race coming up in April. She's like, you're not missing a workout.
Our wives are so similar. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Amanda does the same thing for jiu-jitsu. She's like, you need to go train today. If she knows I'm having a hard day or a bad day, you need to go train.
Self-preservation at some point,
Yes,
part of it
absolutely.
too. It's
Yeah,
like-
for sure. I know. If I'm being a jerk, she just needs me out of the house because when I work out, I've never been in a bad mood after a workout.
Right.
I've never come home like, no.
Even more mad.
Yeah, I'm always much better. And that's what was awesome is like you guys had some pretty important stuff going on last week and you came over to the house to work out and it ended up turning out to being a late night thing. I mean, we were there long and I felt bad and I texted Emily in our group text and she was like, nope, it's where he needed to be. And
she meant it.
And she was right, and it was because what you and I got from that time together before the guys showed up was awesome. I needed that.
Yeah.
I just kind of was talking through some stuff, but then when the guys were there, I know Josh needed that. My buddy Josh that came, and he enjoyed that connection with you guys as well.
Yeah.
And, it was awesome. Tyron's son Jackson out there, like just getting after it with us, and Titus like pushing it, redlining, right? And for his growth, they talk about that, his growth of, Titus he's a stud. You look at him, he's a stud. He was a professional, or not professional, but high level gymnast, athlete, and he's just a stud. And then he has like you and I and Tyron as the older guys in there, and you and I like just the older broke dudes, and
Tyron being perfect at everything.
yeah. And then we all crushed it together.
Yep.
And I think it's awesome how you constantly find different things to push yourself mentally and physically, and your wife has that alignment as well, which is cool. One of the things I wrote down on my phone for Lucas and I are going to do a Q&A session coming up. So if you guys have any questions, just put them on YouTube. We'll get to them. But I had a guy reach out because he made a comment on somebody else's post in regards to, he's like, hey man, with a new kid, like, how are you able to go work out? He goes, my wife doesn't allow me to. And I commented, I'm like, what do you mean she doesn't allow you to go work out? And then and so anyway, we ended up talking
Turns
back
out
and
it's
forth.
not her.
Well, I don't know the full truth yet, but we kind of were going back and forth because I kind of thought that at first. And dude, there are some spouses that do not support their other significant other working out.
Or just period.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Like it.
Yeah. So do you have any races coming up?
Yeah, I'm doing a Galveston one. Got a half Ironman in Galveston.
When is that?
That's April 7th. So we're gonna go down, kind of make a whole weekend of it. Pastor Ron's gonna be there, and then him and I, our goal is to get invited to a World Championship Ironman. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to do that at the same time. So this year, it'd be kind of cool if we got invited because it's in New Zealand. So that's a goal that I have, and once again, it's a goal for Emily because she wants to go to either New Zealand or usually the race is in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
Get invited. Do what you need to do to get invited. Like, go work out. Like, take some steroids. And she didn't say that, but maybe I did.
TRT. Let's be real. It's prescribed by a doctor. It's called testosterone replacement
Is that
therapy.
the same as Tren? I don't take Tren. Obviously, I don't take Tren. Obviously, I don't take anything.
I was just going to say, could you imagine someone taking Tren trying to do triathlon training? They would cramp up and die.
Or Tren and look like me. Like, it's just like...
I'm not laughing at you.
Yes, you
a
are.
Statement.
And Lucas is laughing in solidarity.
I also don't take Tren.
None of us do, clearly. Oh,
but I want
it's
to.
a real big.
I take krill oil.
Is krill oil the same thing?
Yeah. Is that
Do they
the same
scream?
thing?
Do they scream like they do in Finding Nemo?
I've got grass-fed krill oil over here.
Oh.
Very good.
Grass-fed.
Oh. Hey, TRT is a
delicious.
beautiful thing.
It can be, yes, when you're allowed to take it.
Oh, Lucas, we close this out. Any questions you have for Mike? By the way, sorry.
I think after
These
go
are
ahead.
the best. Like, obviously, all the guests we've had are awesome, different dynamics, like stories and powerful. I will say I've gotten multiple comments of people saying I haven't laughed this much listening to a podcast before, based off the last few with Mike. So,
Yeah, I think after my question to open the show that I'm gonna put a moratorium on questions for Mike for the rest of this episode. So I think you kind of the big question I had is the one that I asked at the beginning. And dude, thanks so much for being on the show, man. Your story has been so encouraging to me.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the YouTube comments, and one of the things that I'm consistently seeing on our YouTube comments is how your humor and bravery have meshed together in such a way that it's encouraging a lot of the guys that are leaders that just they don't see themselves as they're not the imposing discipline leader. They're trying to figure out how to be themselves and to lead people, and you've given a lot of inspiration to them, and I've taken some from you as well. So thanks for being on, dude. Thanks for sharing your stories. It's been a pleasure to get to know you over the last few episodes.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go. All right, Mike, as always, dude, thanks for your time. Thank you for your friendship, everything that you did for our nation and what you're currently doing as a Christian man for this nation as well. So appreciate all the listeners. Thank you for all the support you guys give us just by listening. And for those of you that are sharing, tagging us on social media, subscribing, commenting, as always, we really appreciate that. If you want to follow us on social media, I am at JP Dinnell. Lucas is at Lucas Pinkard, which is LucaspinkCkard. And Mike is at Mikey M83. Because we're both those 83 babies. Anyways, make sure you guys are also following Echelon Front. If you guys want to learn more about what we do at Echelon Front, go to echelonfront.com. Would love to see you guys at a future event or just have the opportunity to come and work with your team and serve you guys. I'm very thankful for what I get to do every single day. And for those of you listening, we have a couple people that have now reached out to Echelon Front, got some inquiries, coming to musters, FTXs, signed up for the academy. I think it's awesome. Also check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA, ministry I'm a part of with Isaac, Stephen, and Josh. We also have a podcast called the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Also a partner of a Texas beef company called Little Cattle Co.
Get that beef.
Yeah, dog. If you go to littlecattle.co, you can check out our website. We order to all 48 states, the lower 48. And, we've had a good amount of people reach out and get them as gifts for people as well. So that's something that we can do. We also have a local pickup on Wednesdays and Thursdays. We're in Argyle. Also, the last company I'm partnered with is called On the Path Printing. Josh Strasberg and I started that company together. It's an apparel printing company. We've been working the last couple of weeks working out all the ins and outs of that, the machinery, and it's awesome as we're getting real close to be able to start taking a bunch of orders in. Also want to thank Origin and Jocko Fuel for all the support that they've given me over the years, and now the support that they give to this podcast, to Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Obviously, the connection with Echelon Front and the FTXs and everything that we do, it's absolutely incredible.
I'm all geared out in Origin stuff
you
today.
are. Let's go.
Hey, that gi that you got, sorry to interrupt you, that new gi that you just got, is that like a limited edition thing? Can people still get that? Because it's gorgeous.
I don't even know if it's on the website yet. It should be up there very soon.
Okay, because I know they were promoing like some shirts with that logo, that it's the Origin logo with like all the different belts.
Yeah, the path.
Oh, dude, it's so cool.
Yeah. So,
Fabulous? Could it be fabulous?
Nope. It
couldn't be.
If you want American made jiu-jitsu gear, jeans, boots, pants, shirts, hoodies, beanies, belts, wallets, all that stuff, all the stuff from Jocko Fuel, cleanest supplements out there on the market. We appreciate all their support. And, I just want to thank the Mike again for the time that he took, but I also want his Marines knowing that I am extremely proud of you. I am extremely thankful that our nation has warriors like you. And I know it's the men that served with Mike that have created a culture that this nation has been founded upon, and you guys are making that culture better. You have made our nation better. You've made the world better. And I want to remind each and every one of you to keep going out there on your new mission and go out there and continue to do what you do, which is fight for what you believe in and fight for this nation and make this nation better, as you always have done. So I'm thankful for those men, and I just want to thank you guys for listening. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 16.